Dogen was about to have new clients, and when his colleague pointed out the guy who was walking his dog, the guy realized that he would have a lot of work to do. Dogen was forced to carry a poster with an advertisement on his back through the streets. Due to the fact that sales were low in the hall, while he and his hyung were walking through the streets, a chubby guy approached them because he was interested in the guy. Dogun's colleague asked to close the gym this time because he was going on a date with his girlfriend. When he left, the guy began to bring himself pleasure directly onto Chae Seung-woo's jacket. When the guy came back from a walk, he began to behave strangely because he wanted to go to Dogun for training, but was afraid whether they would help him. Dogun arrived a couple of hours earlier since he still couldn't sleep, and when he met with Seung-woo, he saw that the guy was looking for the jacket that he had brought himself pleasure from looking at yesterday. The guy leaned over to him and started sniffing his neck and realized that he had changed his shampoo. Dogun, realizing that his excitement had increased, warned that the guy's jacket was in the washing machine and quickly went to the toilet to clean up what would bother him all day. Dogun continued to stand next to Seung-woo since he had no clients, and the guy began to complain that his colleague had taken a client from him again, and while the guys were talking, they saw that the chubby guy they met had come into the hall. A blond man immediately approached the guy because he saw that he was covered in branded items, but then Dogun pushes him away, asking if the guy was looking for him by chance. When the guys went into the room, Dogun noticed that the guy really had everything expensive, since his watch was from a limited edition and there was no bag at all, and everything he was wearing was equivalent to the cost of an apartment. When Dogun offered the guy to buy an annual subscription, he immediately agreed, and he gave the guy a black card so that he could pay immediately, and the main character realized that if he became his client, then he didn't have to worry about being fired. Dogun saw a black card for the first time in his life, and when he went to pay for his subscription with it, he also surprised Seung-woo with it. And having received praise from the guy, the main character left, and Min Ki-won filled out the documents. He could not control his emotions, since it was the first time that his hyung complimented him. Kai-won decided to ask Dogun to go on a date with him if he could lose weight and achieve the desired result. And the guy still agreed, because he was afraid that the boy would quit classes. Dogun realized that he should not have tried his luck. After a year of training, Kai-won was able to lose weight and become the guy of his dreams. A year had already passed. Dogun thought that Kai-won would quickly give up, but he still couldn't accept the fact that the guy was able to change his body in a year. He trained according to his plan, and now he has the body he wanted, but he still continues to train as before. When Dogun thought that the guy really liked to spend money, Kai-won reminded him of the promise he made a year ago and invited him. But the guy just decided to pretend that he didn't remember this, and saying that he didn't have time, he already started to leave. When Dogun was about to leave, Kai-won grabbed his hand, saying that he had already achieved the desired result, and when he showed his abs, the guy realized that he was still his type. After all, he did not expect such a result, and that he would succeed in this matter, even though it was he who taught him various trainings. Dogun really couldn't find the words, but with Kyo-won's ever-shining smile like a puppy and his well-trained muscular body, he's every man's dream, and he also has a lot of money. That's the only thing that worries the guy a little. Dogun decided not to promise anything more to Kai-won, since his heart should not suddenly fluctuate and change feelings from one to another. The guy just refused the client again, saying that he needed to train more, since his results were still not enough. After Dogun told Kai-won to train his pectoral muscles, the guy began diligently training his chest for several days. And when the coach asked how long he was going to do the same exercise, the guy simply said that he would do it until the coach agreed to go on a date with him. Dogun still decided to agree to go on a date with Kai-won since he didn't want to lose the client, and made an appointment for the weekend evening, thinking that all this will not go far one way or another, and the guy already knew where they would go together. Kai-won's parents began to complain that when he started working out at the gym, he shrunk in half. And when the guy was already leaving, they emphasized that he had also preened himself, and they were taken aback by the fact that their son was going on a date. Kai-won decided to have a date at the best restaurant, as Dogun expected, because the guy wouldn't book an ordinary place. But the coach didn't like the fact that they lived in different worlds, and he constantly sat without a mood, since everything that surrounded him burdened his soul. When Kai-won offered Dogen wine, he refused, arguing that alcohol reduces muscle mass. But he still agreed, due to the fact that the more he looks at the guy, the more interesting he becomes, and he decided to ask if he likes men like him. Kai-won agreed that he really liked men, but when Dogen decided to ask at what point he was attracted to guys, the client only said that he would only tell if the coach agreed to another date. Dogen still refused, realizing that the guy was not a little puppy, but a fox. Suddenly, the guys saw that director Chae Seung-woo entered the restaurant along with his girlfriend, and the guy realized that it would be better for him if he fell in love with a man who also likes men, but his heart constantly chooses the most difficult paths. As soon as Kai-won started shouting about whether Dogen needed some medicine since he didn't look good, director Chae Seung-woo came up to them along with the girl. The coach realized that he could no longer remember how many years he liked Seung-woo, since more than 8 years had already passed. Because of Seung-woo, Dogen drank too much alcohol. And when the guys left the restaurant, Kai-won decided to ask why the coach didn't confess his love to the manager. But the guy just refused, because he was the same. Doesn't understand what it's like to love a straight guy. As soon as Dogen wanted to leave the elevator, Kai-won stopped him and dragged him back into the elevator, and pressing him against the wall, he began to ask the guy to try to love him, since nothing would work out with the manager, and the coach decided to ask the guy to kiss him, wondering if he could, he will teach him more good than bad. Kai-won approached the guy and kissed him, while Dogen began to think that if he remained sane, nothing would happen because people tend to believe in things that they cannot handle. And half an hour later, the guys found themselves in the room, since it turned out that the guy had booked it from the very beginning. Dogen, looking at Kai-won's face, understood that this was the face that he had seen constantly for a year. Sometimes he got tired of it, but for some reason he had a strange feeling, because the guy had reddening skin, endlessly flirting eyes, and nervously with every breath. Trembling body. All this is alien to the coach at this moment. When Dogen woke up, he began to complain that Kai-won seemed to have devoured him, since the guy was covered in hickeys and bites, and although it was a little late, he wanted to plunge into the water and get stuck there. But when the coach was almost dressed, Kai-won woke up and asked him not to leave so early because he might let him down. Dogen began to realize that he did not have the courage to behave selfishly now. Therefore, he decided to tell Kai-won that everything that happened yesterday was a mistake, and asked to blame everything on alcohol and its effects, and saying that he used it because he unrequitedly loves Seung-woo, asked Kai-won to shout at him. Running out of the room, Dogun was glad that they were doing this by drinking alcohol, because this way he was able to cowardly run away, blaming all the blame on the alcohol. The next day, while Dogen was waiting for his clients, Seung-woo approached him, wondering if the guy had a crush on Kai-won, since he met a client outside the hall. The guy realized that the boy shouldn't come anymore, because after what happened, they shouldn't see each other again. As soon as the guy started talking about Kai-won, he immediately came into the hall, all rumpled, and he immediately began to test the waters, asking if Dogen got there safely that day. And Seung-woo, who was watching all this, realized that between the guys, something happened. In the evening, when Dogen had already begun to change clothes, Kai-won ran up to him, turned him around, began to ask why he was pretending as if nothing had happened, and immediately kissed him. And then he asked to meet with him 10 more times, and if after that the coach still did not start to feel something for him, then he would give up. Dogen immediately began to blush because Kai-won looked too cute, and when he wanted to say something, they were caught by Seung-woo, who asked the guy to quickly wrap up and left, and the coach still agreed to meet with the guy again. The boy was immediately glad that he meant something to the coach. When Ken-won came to training again, he was all glowing with happiness, and when Dogen decided to put a little pressure on the bar, his eyes dropped to the level of the guy's shorts, and so he immediately pulled away, blushing. While the guys were talking, another coach approached them, who, putting his arm around Ke-won's shoulders, began to say that there was a charming atmosphere between the guys today. but he immediately ran away because he was afraid that Dogen would beat him. Dogen realized that he would be lying if he said that he was not curious about what Kai Wan liked about him, since he has a nasty character, no car. He is not that handsome, and in the end the most attractive thing about him is his body. But he is a guy understands for sure that the boy is not lying about liking him. Since Dogen had a day off, Kai Wan immediately called him out on a date, asking him to tell him his address so that he could pick him up. And as soon as the guy went out onto the roof, he saw that some expensive car had hit all the garbage cans, and as soon as he thought about whose car it was, Kai Wan immediately got out of it. As soon as the guys got into the car, Dogen asked not to pick him up in the car anymore, since Kai Wan stands out a lot, since their worlds are really different, and there is no need to compare. The guy thought about whether he could withstand these 10 meetings. After dinner, Dogen realized that he had eaten too much, and when he thought about the fact that Kai Wan was too quiet, and whether they were going to separate or not, the guy suggested taking a walk. And when the guys were walking, the coach decided to ask the guy about his first love. It turned out that Kai Wan's first love was a guy who learned to cook and then flew abroad, and now the guy receives information about him through his parents. As soon as Dogen wanted to leave, Kai Wan tried to stop him in every possible way, and even said that he could run with him to the bus stop. Dogen started having a dream about Kai Wan bringing him pleasure in the car, and as soon as he realized that it was a dream, he immediately woke up. When the guy was sitting and drinking at the bar, he wanted to find a partner for the night, but his old friend immediately approached him and offered himself as a partner. Dogen admitted that he was already in a relationship, and he didn't need a partner for the night. When he said that Kyo Wan was 6 years younger than him, his friend was very surprised, since the guy always didn't like younger people, and the guy immediately began to pester him with various questions. Dogen's friend suggested that the guy sleep with Kai Wan again in order to finally understand himself. But the guy understood that he had already taken advantage of the boy, and then abandoned him, and did not understand how he could suddenly ask the guy to sleep with him. Dogen got very drunk, lay his head on the bar counter, and fell asleep, not even hearing what his friend was telling him. After a while, Kai Wan runs up to the guy. An hour ago, while Kai Wan was playing with his dog, Dogen's friend called him from the guy's phone and said that the guy was unconscious now, so he urgently needed to come to the bar. And when the guy arrived, Dogen still didn't wake up. As soon as Dogen's friend wanted to offer his help, Kai Wan easily picked the guy up in his arms. When Kai Wan brought the drunk Dogen home, he was very angry, because all this time, he was afraid that the guy would run away like that time. He was going to treat him with care if the guy knew that the coach would lie drunk. Then he would not hold back and act according to his desire. When Dogen woke up, Kai Wan calmed him down, saying that his friend had contacted him and asked him to pick up a drunk coach from the bar. And when he asked why the guy was half naked, Kai Wan admitted that he wanted to do this, but then changed his mind because the guy was sleeping. When Dogen reached out to K1 to kiss him, the guy resisted by any means, because he didn't want to sleep with the coach again, because of alcohol. But still the guy persuades him and pulls him towards him and kisses him, gradually deepening the kiss. When Kai Wan woke up, he did not see the coach near him, but when he ran into the kitchen, he found Dogen there, who was preparing breakfast for them. The guy immediately sent the younger one into the shower, complaining that he had been sleeping for too long. Kai Wan was surprised that Dogen had prepared so little food, but the guy immediately began to say that if the younger one wants to get rid of fat, then he needs to eat less and not skip training. But the guy reassured him that he would not take breaks until the coach quit. When Dogen finished eating, he asked Kai Wan to quickly get ready, since it was time for them to go out, and the guy was surprised that they were going out together. But the coach explained this by saying that they even had breakfast together, so why not go together? Several days passed from that moment, and Dogen looked as if he was on the verge of death from sexual temptation. The guy didn't even rest all these days, since he and Kai Wan met every day. They had dinner, and then went to the hotel to spend the night together. As soon as Dogen thought that he could rest peacefully, and not go out anywhere, he was immediately shitted by Seung-woo, who asked the guy to go out instead of Mr. Ho, since he was not feeling well. And when the guy looked around the hall, he saw Kai-wan, who was training at full speed. Dogen noticed that Kai-wan could already teach other people on his own, and Seung-woo asked if the younger wanted to become a coach, since he himself could already do without a coach. But the coach only asked that the manager not offer the guy a job. While the guys were talking, Kai-wan ran up to them. But when the coach went to the locker room to change clothes, the guy followed him because he thought that he wanted to tell him something. And then the coach said that it seemed to him that the guy was smiling at everyone so casually. When Kai-wan came home, he was greeted by his mother, who woke up as soon as she heard that the guy had come home. It turns out that his ex is returning to Seoul because he now wants to work at Kyo-wan's family's restaurant. When Dogun and the manager closed the hall, Seung-woo invited the guy to have dinner together at his expense, in gratitude for helping him that day, and immediately came running after the call. And then Kai-wan ran up to the guys and started asking to go with them. Kai-wan admitted that he wanted to give Dogun a gift as soon as he finished his shift, but he didn't expect that the guy would go to dinner with the manager, so he didn't want to let the guys go alone but wanted to be with the coach. When the guys all went out to dinner together, Dogun's heart still couldn't calm down, and he didn't understand which of the guys could cause such a state. When the guys arrived at the establishment, Seung-woo told Kai-wan not to pay attention to the coach, but to eat calmly. It turned out that Seung-woo and Dogun studied at the same university, and therefore in those days they often went to the institution where the guys were now sitting. When the coach left, Kai-wan understood why the guy liked the manager, because he looked mature, and he wanted to work under his leadership. Seung-woo thanked Kai-wan for being able to soften Dogun's nature, due to the fact that the guy was always serious and didn't know how to let people get close to him. The manager was worried that the guys wouldn't succeed, but seeing how the guy was changing, he was only happy this. It seemed to Kai-wan that the manager was leaving somewhere, but Seung-woo only admitted that he and his fiancée had decided to get married. It turned out that it was not the guy who proposed to the girl, but the other way around. And so he asked that when Kai-wan's time comes, he should be the first to propose. Kai-wan realized that if Dogun heard this news, he might start crying. And then, looking up, he saw that the guy had heard everything. When the coach asked if it was true, the manager was surprised at the change in his mood and asked for forgiveness for not told him first. While Dogun was running because of thoughts about Seung-woo's wedding, he continued to increase the speed of the treadmill, and then he fell. And while everyone was getting ready, Kai-wan said that he would take the guy to the hospital, since he definitely broke something. Of all the possible places, Seung-woo sent Dogun to the hospital to see his fiancée, and when his leg was bandaged, Haran wondered if the coach still thought about her in a bad way. Since the girl thought that they would become friends with him, but the guy began to move away more and more. Dogun didn't know what to say to Haran, so he simply apologized. But the girl only said that there was no need for an apology, and asked if Seung-woo had told him about their wedding. The guy only congratulated the girl on her engagement and went to Kai-wan, who was waiting for him in the corridor. Kai-wan started asking the trainer if he could walk, but Dogun just started talking about how he was too useless and how he could have gotten such a blunt fracture. Although the guy wanted the coach to lose his love for the manager, he was not happy now, because he saw that Dogun's heart was broken. While Tae-hee was bringing pleasure to the girl, he continued to sit on the phone because he was thinking whether to call him Kai-wan or not. And when the girl asked when he would return, he simply said not to wait for him, since within a year he would fly to Korea. A year ago, when Kai-wan had just started training with Dogun, the coach was amazed at how much weight the guy could lift, and it turned out that the guy had a predisposition for weightlifting. Dogun thought from the very beginning that when Kai-wan arrived for the first time, he would immediately give up. But the guy turned out to be much better than he expected. Because the guy always arrives on time, always gives his all in training, and is very polite to him. Although Kai-wan was perfect in many aspects, there was one thing: he still could not lose weight. He only lost 1 kilogram during the entire time of their training. And Dogun thought about how a guy could ask to go on a date with him if he couldn't even lose weight. When Dogun complained to the trainer that Kai-wan still wasn't losing weight, the guy offered to find out about his diet And when his client sent a photo, there was too much food on it, which greatly angered the trainer, since it was precisely because of this the guy couldn't lose weight. At the next training session, Dogen started yelling at Kaio-won for eating too much, and now the guy has to send all the photos of the food he eats, because if he doesn't lose weight, the coach won't go on a date with him. Dogen brought Kai-wan to tears by saying that he would not go on a date with him, but the guy only asked him to change his mind and promised that he would take care of his nutrition and watch his diet. The coach only calmed the guy down and asked him to hold out for just 1 year. When Dogen was leaving the store, a small dog crashed into him. Later it turned out that its owner was Kai-wan. The guys decided to sit in the park so that the guy could drink water properly. As it turns out, the guy not only works out during the day, but also goes jogging with his dog in the evening. That's why the coach suggested the guy run together. While jogging, Dogen realized that he spends more time with Kai-wan than with Seung-woo. They meet every day in the gym, and in the evening they run together in the park. The coach thought that he didn't hate Kai-wan because he couldn't see the manager normally, but on the contrary, he thought that he was young and quite cute. Dogen tried to deny that he felt anything for Kai-wan, because all people think he's cute, just like he does, and not because he makes a guy's heart beat faster. As soon as Dogen wanted to kiss Kai-wan's dog, it all resulted in the guy asking him to kiss him when he loses weight. The coach did not expect that the guy could be so heartless, since he asked him to kiss him for every 10 kilograms he lost. A year later, Kai-wan had changed a lot, and when he came to the hall, he found out that Dogen had been buying lottery tickets every week for 10 years, but had never won anything. But the coach thought the guy might be his biggest prize.